It's funny that we were just talking about that. I actually, guys, just real quick, we were talking about just how Tony Whatley has an amazing podcast, 365 Driven, and we were just talking about, how we ask questions, and I really like that perspective that you were saying, how, you'd like to think of what the audience might ask your guests, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and that's funny because I look at it as if I'm the audience.
That's right.
And then I think what I would ask you. Or, anything that I don't know about you, because there's always like a glimpse and everything else of what we could get a background of you in social media or maybe like the internet or your website. And I think I always like to ask something that I feel like no one probably wouldn't ask.
It's really annoying because I love listening to podcasts. I listened to them for years before I started one.
Yeah.
And what is most annoying is exactly what you're saying, where the host doesn't ask the right questions. When they have an expert or something that's very notable in some kind of a subject matter, and they're not asking them the right questions, and you're like, man, you're just asking the generic questions that everybody asks of every guest.
Yeah,
It's like you have the guy that knows this, and you're not asking them the right questions. That drives me nuts.
Yeah. And you know what, too, with this podcast, so sorry, guys, we went a little backwards. Usually I give like an intro, but guys, I have a legend. This is Tony Whatley. He is a good friend of mine. He is a colleague in the Arete Syndicate. We met through there, and we've been able to get acquainted through some of the events. And he's finally here from Houston, right?
Yeah.
From Houston, Texas.
Houston, Texas.
I appreciate you coming down here. As you know, it's crazy because the podcast has definitely developed to the point where people are traveling to me now, and it's just I feel so humbled and blessed that you're able to take the time out of your busy schedule, because we're going to be talking about exactly all the amazing things that Tony does. But anyway, you're doing some events here?
Yeah, I was doing a mastermind event, which I highly recommend for everybody. It was just a good way to get into a room with a bunch of people at high-level thinking and growth mindset, and challenge each other and call each other out on our bullshit, and go be like, no, that's not what you really want. What do you really want? And things like that. And I'm coming away with it with some good action plans. So things about scaling companies and stuff.
Nice. Yeah. Dude, you have an amazing, I find it I've always looked up to you as a leader because I see what you're doing. Back when we started the Arete program, I was still, I guess you could say, finding my way. I knew what I wanted to do, but there wasn't a lot of clarity, right? And then I look at you and I see all the things you're doing. 365 Driven, you're an author, car fanatic, mentor, entrepreneur. And I love by the way, how you sell wheels too. We're going to dive into that shortly. And, I'm almost like, man, this guy's like superhuman or something. You know what I mean? And, we both agree, right? And I actually was just listening to your podcast episode when you reached that milestone. I think it was 100 episodes, or it was kind of
probably the 50th. 50th episode.
Yeah, and I had a similar episode where we talked about some of the similarities we observed through our guests, right? The brilliance of them, but in reality, how they're pretty much all relatable. You know what I mean? And I know you could attest to that, and agree with it, that, we may see from the outside perspective like, man, is this guy an X-Men, or is this guy like an Avenger or something? But in reality, it's really just, we are human, we're all relatable, and we just found something that worked for us, right? So let's kind of dive in, because with the parables, I like to get to know you, like I know you, but I like to get my audience to know you a little bit, as if they're sitting here with us. Let's talk about a little bit about your upbringing, where you came from, everything that's led up to your career, and then what you're doing now. And I want to go a little sidetracked here, being that you're from Houston, Texas. I'm telling you, this is totally off topic. I'm actually going to be going to Austin, Texas for a wedding very, very shortly. And the invitation said Texas semi-formal. Can you please tell me what that is? I have no idea what that is.
If I were to take a guess, I would say that it's probably dress pants with allowing your cowboy boots.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, that's what I would guess.
Cowboy hat too would be okay. Bolo tie maybe.
Exactly. If you wanted to go country and wear your dress slacks and your suit, because we wear our cowboy boots if we want to with a suit. It's perfectly normal.
Yeah, it's normal, right?
It's normal in Texas, yeah.
Okay, yeah, because if you wear that out here in LA, someone would probably yell "yeehaw" or something. Right, you know what I'm saying? Right. That's awesome, man. So let's go back to kind of your upbringing. Were you always from Houston, Texas, or did you kind of move over there, or where are you originally from?
So I was actually born in Iwakuni, Japan.
Oh, man.
My mom's Japanese.
Okay.
And my dad was in the U.S. Marines. We moved to California actually when I was in Camp Pendleton when I was 1, and then we moved to Houston when I was 2. So I've been in Houston my entire life.
Dang, wow. How's it like growing up there?
I love it. It's a great city, very diverse culture, a lot of different things for a large city, number 4, I believe, right now behind New York, Chicago, LA.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very affordable city as well, and there's a lot of income, a lot of influence. We have no state income taxes.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great entrepreneurial city for
Mm-hmm.
that regard. And it's got a huge car scene. And as you mentioned, I'm a car fanatic.
Yeah.
And we like to haul ass in Houston, and we like to build fast cars, 1,000 horsepower type stuff and bigger. It's a great city because all of our roads are straight and they're flat. There's no elevation changes.
Oh, nice. And I'm sure like the roads are way better there
Oh,
compared to
way
over
better.
here.
We don't have the winter issues of the northern states, and then we have a pretty good repair system, so we always have new highways to go play on.
Nice. Is pretty humid out there?
Always.
Always, yeah.
Especially right now, this time of year, it's probably low 90s and humid. But if it gets hotter, like 98 degrees, the humidity kind of burns off at some temperature.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels a little bit better, actually, when it's hotter. When it's like 101 degrees, it's almost like more pleasant than 95 and humid.
Almost like it almost levels out, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It's not as good as here, though. I spent the weekend here in LA, and the weather here is amazing. So I can see why people want to live here.
Yeah, you've come to LA multiple times, though, right? Yeah, I gotta tell you, the weather here is like it's kind of spontaneous. Like you might see it like nice, but if you stay for like maybe 2 weeks, you'll see it'll be hot one day and then super cold the next day. Then it might be raining with thunder and storms, and then it just might be, I don't know, just warm. So it's just like I always tell people who come to visit, like, you never know what to wear, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So growing up, what were some of the things that you were kind of interested with? Because you started your career in engineering, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did you? I mean, were you always into cars? Were you always into the mechanical stuff? Or
Always. I remember watching my mom cook dinner when I was probably 4 years old before school,
mm-hmm.
and she'd buy me coloring books because I was very artistic. I'm very creative and like to design things and paint and do crayons and things as a child. But what I was ended up doing, instead of coloring in the book, I would draw cars in all the blank pages of the book.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's like, well, why am I buying you these books? So she basically just started giving me blank sheets of paper so I could draw cars.
Nice.
And my dad worked in the chemical refineries in the Houston area after he got out of the military. And he would bring home washers, like nut and bolt washers. And I had all these different, I had a Ziploc bag of different sized washers.
Uh-huh.
And I used to trace those to make the wheels and tires for the cars that I was drawing.
Oh, interesting.
So I've always been a car fanatic. Hot Wheels led to building cars. My very first car, 1969 Camaro, I bought when I was 15 from working at McDonald's,
Mm-hmm.
mowing yards, whatever I could to make that money. And my dad and I restored it. It was a low budget restoration. We did a lot of junkyard diving,
Mm-hmm.
put it together, but it was a running, driving car when I turned 16. So I've always had a passion for cars. And that's really what led into my business success later on.
Mm-hmm. Were you also into RC cars too? Because I was into cars early in my life too, and then I got into RC kart racing a little bit. And I still have that car fanatic in me. But you're into RC cars too?
Yeah, I had some good hobbies. I've always been a daredevil and an adrenaline junkie.
Yeah.
So I was a skateboarder. I did BMX freestyle. I've done all kinds of crazy stuff. I'm covered with scars head to toe, and I have no regrets on that. But I think that really the adrenaline rush, the willingness to take risks of things that could probably kill me, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times I probably should have died in my childhood.
Same.
Honestly, that mindset, I think it attributes a lot of success to the entrepreneurial mind, because we have to take those risks.
Absolutely.
So looking back, it's kind of funny to put the puzzle pieces together and understand where you arrived and why you are who you are.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that the car thing really drove me to become a mechanical engineer.
Mm-hmm.
I paid for my own college. Did it 7 years. I worked full time working in the chemical refineries. On the weekends, I was waiting tables,
Mm-hmm.
eventually managing the restaurants on the weekends as well. On the other week, on Saturday mornings, I would go work at a performance shop and help out around there, design their website, do some sales at the counter,
Mm-hmm.
do some simple installs. So I was working 3 jobs, dude, and going to school.
Yeah.
And it took me 7 years, but I got the degree because I really wanted to go work for the big 3 up in Detroit and maybe design the Camaro, Corvettes. Those were always my dream cars.
Yeah.
And honestly, after I graduated college, you start doing these phone interviews with these people up there, and they're paying half the price of oil and gas, which was Houston, my hometown,
Yeah.
or the oil capital of the United States. So
Yeah.
I was like, I can make double the money and stay in my own hometown and actually buy the cars that I want to work on instead of going up there and living broke and just working on them. It's like, yeah, I think I'll just stay here and buy the cars that I want to work, own. So,
So it sounds like, so you actually started your career in mechanical, and then you went to, I guess, petroleum, I guess you could say, right?
Well, I went into project management.
Okay.
So when you get into engineering and you go in, usually I would say we divide engineers into two different types. You have the type that are highly analytical that want to go do design. Typically have the introverted type personality, stereotypical engineer that we hear about.
Yeah.
And the ones who have the leadership potential, the outgoingness, and me working in restaurants for over 10 years as a waiter. I mean, I learned how to speak to people, read people pretty quickly, gain some confidence. I think working in a restaurant really I was shy as a high schooler, came out of my shell from working in the restaurants. And then you go into project management. So you can either go to design and analytics and math, hard math, or you can go to project management. The degree was really just the key to get into those fields.
Gotcha. Yeah. So there's actually I don't know if you noticed about me. So I actually, this has something to do with engineering and cars. So before I got into my nursing career, my mom bribed me to get out of the mindset of going for an engineering degree, major. And her bribe was, all right, she's a nurse, Filipinos, right? So she was like, hey, I want you to just drop this whole engineering mindset here, and I want you to take up nursing, and in exchange, I will buy you your first car. Because I guess she was so sick of me I was so involved with school, right? I think she was like, we got to get this guy a car because I'm tired of driving this, with driver's permit, like age of 15, right? So, I bring this up because engineering, I thought I wanted to be like software engineer, mechanical engineer. So, I wanted to ask you, was there always that look into you wanted to be mechanical engineer and then eventually go into project management? Or like, how did you get into that specialty, I guess you could say?
I think I knew I wanted to be a mechanical engineer when I was 12 years old.
Okay.
And it's because I've always had a mechanical mind and I always try to figure out why things work the way they do. I was always good at taking things apart and actually putting them back together again and having them function. So I've been very curious about everything mechanical.
The curiosity, right?
I was fascinated by World War II aircraft and then fighter jets and cars and army tanks and anything mechanical that had gears and wheels and things that motion and horsepower. Like those are things that fascinated me. And they're like, hey, if that's the stuff that you like, then you need to get a mechanical engineering degree. And I'll tell you that I was average at math. It was a struggle. Like I was definitely a good grades in high school, but I didn't really press myself to take the hardest classes. So I graduated top 10%, like with average type classes. And honestly, college kicked my ass. It was hard. Math was kicking my ass. And I really screwed up my GPA in the first year of college because I just did not know how to study at that point. High school was very easy for me. College, engineering especially, when you finish at the top 10%, you go into engineering school, you're with a bunch of other top 10%ers, and now all of a sudden you're average. And the very first C that I got in my life was in college, and I thought my life was over. I was like, what the hell is this? I mean, come on, a Japanese mom?
Yeah, you're like,
They value education, man. And Ejay, I'll tell you how much my mom valued education and why. Because growing up in Japan, the women usually get to a junior high level of education and they're pulled out of the school system to go work in the farms, where the boys get to go on to do the high school, which is kind of like our college level, like our junior college, because they're a little bit further ahead than we are.
Interesting.
So she always valued education, knowing that she didn't get that. And she always wanted to be a fashion designer and a seamstress, and she was very good at that. She made our clothes. We didn't have a lot of money growing up. She actually made our clothes all the way up to high school. Then when you get into high school, brand names start to matter. And you're like, all right, Mom, you can't be making my clothes anymore.
Yeah.
But I understand why we did it. I thought it was just cool that she could do that. But looking back, it's because we didn't have the money to go buy the brand name clothes, but she can make the nice stuff. But going back to the education part, dude, I did not miss one day of school from kindergarten through graduation of high school.
Wow.
I did not miss. If I was like deaf, she goes, unless you're dying, you're getting on that bus.
So you had the perfect attendance all the time.
I had a disciplinarian with the education with my mom, and I had the disciplinarian with the behaviors and mindset with the Marine gunnery sergeant dad. So I had a double dose of highly disciplined people. And anyone that knows me, and this guy knows me, like consistency is my big word. And I think it's because it was pounded into my head for my whole teenage years, basically.
Mm-hmm. So you got your first C, and that was in math or in college?
Probably in organic chemistry. I think chemistry was a weed out course, and it was really tough for me.
I feel like once you start getting to those fields, that it's really just like almost like talent. You have to be like talented at some point, right?
Yeah, I was like, man, what is this?
So, dude, it's almost like I almost want to call you like the Japanese Tony Stark, man.
Yeah, totally, man.
But so, talk to me. How did you got into project management, right?
Yeah.
How did that kind of? I could understand and get a sense of how that, turned you into a leader. How did it help you emerge into a leader, that leadership role?
I think, honestly, I started getting my first dose of leadership when I was managing the restaurants, because I was managing the wait staff. I had to become the lead waiter, then the lead bartender, then promoted to manager. So I got to do a lot of interviews, a lot of firing people, because, as waiters, there's a lot of people that are just not worth a shit. Mm-hmm. And they come in and out pretty easy. So you get really good at firing people. I've even had to fire people that I thought were friends, high school friends. Just, they're not doing their job. They're showing up late. They're, just making excuses. So I got pretty good at having a thick skin and just executing that. And also observing from my dad, because he worked his way up through the chemical refinery ranks and is working as a general foreman at the end and plant supervisor, things like that. So I've got to see the leadership from his perspective. Gunnery sergeant in the Marines. I mean, that's a leader role. Mm-hmm. You just got to be where we just don't take anybody's crap. You basically have to outline their roles and responsibilities and your expectations, but then you got to allow them to execute, and you got to be a good leader by facilitating them, but not by directing them.
Like kind of like don't micromanage.
Yeah, man. There's so many people out there. I hope you don't have any listeners out, but they wear the manager badge and they think they're a leader. There's not this. They're completely opposites. Mm-hmm. Like you can be a manager and a leader. You can be a leader without the manager title. You could be the guy that's pushing the mop around your store and actually still be a leader.
And leading by example.
You lead by example, and you build your influence around you, and you start to build when you bring people energy and you're helpful and you're facilitating the other people on your team, that's the leadership. Mm-hmm. Most people think it's a title, but there's no different. It's not even related to a title. So I think the leadership into project management, definitely you're getting more responsibilities. My first projects were in the $1 to $2 million range. When I finally left the corporate world 3 years ago, they were the $200 to $500 million range.
Wow, huge
jump. I was
jump.
Managing international projects. I was flying all over the country, flying all over the world, doing execution in Paris and London and Newcastle and Bristol and Angola and Republic of Congo and Point Noir.
Dang.
So I was all over the world doing things, about 75 people on a team.
Was that a hard transition? Going to that $1 million, $2 million to those much bigger multi-million dollar managing? I
would say the way you gain experience is by just having more awareness of the project. So when I give you the small projects, there's still a lot of actions. I mean, you're still obviously booked for 40, 50 hours a week doing whatever you're doing, even if you're at the smaller levels. I mean, there's a lot of project managers that never get even to $1 million projects, depending on the industry they're in. Mm-hmm. So it's understanding how your piece of that project affects the entire project. So, for example, doing oil and gas, big projects, offshore construction is what I did for 20 years. Just really heavy duty, deep water construction using robotic submarines and everything to do the installation, because it was too deep to get people down there. Mm-hmm. So everything's done by ROVs. It was remote operated vehicles. And we have large cranes off these giant ships that lower everything to the bottom. So we're essentially building pipelines and wells on the bottom of the ocean, 2 miles deep, to give you guys an idea. And there's just a lot of things and a lot of moving places, but you understand that if your project is just the equipment, so to speak, and you're hyper focused on that equipment, and that's maybe a $20 million spread. If you're late on that, the impact is the installation of the entire project all the way back to the platform
is massive.
You start to affect the production day, because we all have a first oil day. They have on their calendar, like, this is first oil. They have a plan. We're going to produce on this day one. We're going to make 1 barrel of oil or gas on this, and everybody's fighting to get to that day. And if you leave a couple bolts on the beach and you go offshore, and you need those bolts off there, and you delay it for a half a day because you got to fly a helicopter out there, cost you $20,000 to bring you those bolts, and the ship's out there charging you $500,000 a day to be rented, and it's just sitting around doing nothing, waiting on bolts. Like, these knock for knock things start to add up, and now first oil can cost you millions and millions of dollars per day.
Dang.
So if you're late a few hours, that's millions and millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah, yeah.
So we get hyper focused on what we have to deliver and how it all affects the entire project. And when you start to gain more, just really more responsibilities with that kind of thing, that's when you start getting paid more. So what I like about project manager as a title, there's project managers out there earning $40,000 a year. There's project managers out there earning $400,000 a year.
Wow.
So it's all based on the risk. The more experience you have, the bigger the project, higher the risk, the more they're going to pay you.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like the potential of a negative, massive ripple effect is there, right? But also it sounds like too, it sounds like you definitely had that kind of leadership role at a young age, starting at the restaurant. But then as you scaled and went into, multi-million-dollar project, project management, it sounded like you definitely emerged a lot more as far as your skills working with people, being aware, making sure that this is done so this other thing could be done and it could be done effectively. When did exactly you start going into entrepreneurship? Wasn't there a time that I think that we spoke where you like you mentioned you left the corporate world about 3 years ago?
Right.
Did something happen there, or did your passions just kind of take you to another part of your life, or how exactly did that transition?
So my first LLC was 2001.
Okay.
So I guess what's that, 18 years ago? But I'd always been an entrepreneur in a more of a hustle mode. Even as a kid, 11 years old, I'm out there pushing the lawnmower around the neighborhood, knocking on doors of anybody that had tall grass. I'm asking if I could wash cars, trying to make $10 $5 here and there. And I was always doing that. And that's how I see you got a skateboard on your wall. That's, like I said, I was a skater. That's how I bought my skateboards and my bikes and toys and video games. And other kids would laugh, but it's like, that's how I did it. It's like that. So I was always in that hustle mode because my parents have always taught me, we don't give you allowance. Like, you go get a job. And they facilitated that. They didn't say, like, don't do that. I say, hey, Dad, can I borrow our mower and push it a half mile to the corner store and fill up the gas tank and then go knock on doors on the way home? And he's like, yeah, go do it. Go earn money. Go figure that out. That's awesome.
Go work for it, right?
I was knocking doors as an 11-year-old. People are scared of being door to door when they're salesmen as an adult. It's like, I was a kid.
Yeah.
So I kind of got that out of my system, being rejected. And after a while, you start to get recurring revenue by those people that, hey, come back next week. I'll pay you another $10. So you got 6-7 yards on one street and then 5 on this other street, and you just kind of schedule them. And I actually got a neighbor to, like, help me, and I'd charge him. I was pimping him out basically to go. It's like, I'll give you like $8 to go mow those yards, and then they'd pay me like 10 or 12 bucks. So I made $4 on his.
Nice.
So I was always thinking like that, and selling candy and flipping things and buying stuff at garage sales and selling it. And I've always had that mindset, but it was the employee mindset that we tend to have until we become an entrepreneur. It's all about trading your labor. It's all about trading your time for dollars. And that's what limits even junior level entrepreneurs. There's even business owners who have been in business for 10 years that still have that mindset. They're still trading their time for dollars.
Yes.
And they know that that's never going to scale. They basically became self-employed rather than create a business. And that's really what I help people with now, is try to break out of that mindset. You always see me talking about mindset. It's too many people are focused on trading their time, the most important asset that we have, for dollars.
Yeah.
And that's, like you heard me, I talked about, I had 3 jobs at one point. I was just purely trading my time. And when you're young and you have that time, it's like, it's okay. You got to do what you got to do.
As a sacrifice.
I'm not going to judge. Like, you got to do what you got to do to get to where you want to get. But you got to realize that doesn't sustain. When you start getting in your mid 30s, 40s, 50s, like, you want more time back. You don't want to go spend like 3 jobs. But you know what? If you had to do it, by all means, go do it. Much respect. Go do what you got to do. Don't feel any shame for that stuff. A lot of people have this ego, like, well, I can't do that. I'll tell you, when I graduated college, I had an engineering job paying me $40,000 a year, salary job, pretty good pay for that time. It was at 96, 97. And after being in hustle mode, working 3 jobs and going to school at night for 7 years, when I got out, I felt like a regular job for 40 hours a week was a part-time job to me.
Yeah.
And I got a brand new car. I got a nice apartment. I could go out and get drunk if I want to and go chase the bar scene and be like that. Or, it's like, I get home at 5 o'clock. I leave at 4:30. I'm home at 5. It's like, I can actually go wait tables from 5 o'clock to 10 p.m. every night and make like an extra $100. So that's what I did. I went back to the restaurant that I was working at, I was managing, and I would either pick up manager shifts, or I would pick food runner shifts, or I'd wait tables, and people thought that was funny. Like, man, you got an engineering job, and like you're here. I was like, why wouldn't I be here? It's like, I'm not where I want to be. I'm not where I want to be, dude. Like, I'm just gonna go do what I need to do, and I just didn't really care what other people thought about that. So
it almost sounds like, I think I just saw a meme out there on social media where it's funny where so and so CEOs call themselves CNOs, but technically they're still self-employed.
Yeah.
Right. But it sounds like, from what you're saying, it's okay, right? To still, you still got to hustle, and that's fine. Don't let the outside perspective, allow it to be shameful. But at the same time, there has to be a point where you transition that and you trade, that time, right, of how important it is.
Yeah.
So 365 driven. Before we jump into that, was there any inspiration behind the name? I don't know. You see driven, so you like cars. I don't know. Is there like a special story behind it?
Well, 365 Driven is my latest company, and that's kind of the umbrella brand that I'm building as an entrepreneurial network. My big vision is to build a giant community. I'm a community builder. That's what I've always done.
Yeah.
And I want to build a massive community of entrepreneurs where they can come get the education that they need from different influencers who want to build their own personal brand within that umbrella. Because I know that I don't want to hire a bunch of people and go, hey, you're my 360 driven employee.
Yeah.
I want Ejay to come and build his brand within my brand, be accessible to my audience, my community, teach them things, help them, and then maybe they go find other influencers and other people building within that. So it's fine, but I'm thinking about some kind of a membership thing. It's going to scale. Maybe we buy credits where we can use credits for each different package or influence. Because I got tired of seeing all these different people with all these different packages out there, and it's you got to go spend all these money, and like it's like you don't have time for that. But what if you could go to one hub, an entrepreneur hub, and you can gain the knowledge, you can gain the experience, you can gain the fellowship, the support, things like what we have in Arate, the network,
like an incubator for entrepreneurs.
Just have it all, and then I can bring in the investors, and I just want them all to show up at the same party, man. There's too many compartmentalized parties going on.
Yeah, it gets chaotic, right?
Dude, I want the party, man. I want like Facebook for entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. So we might be jumping a little bit towards 365 driven, but so.
Oh, you asked me about the name.
Oh yeah.
So, as funny as it sounds, I'm a big branding and marketing guy. That's what I love to do. And honestly, I've just started thinking about names and what I do when I tell people to name a company is write down a bunch of keywords and phrases that they would like that resonate with their brand.
Yeah.
And I'm a domain searcher, so I go on and see if the website exists, and that was one of them. And I had I think 5 different names, and that's the one that kind of kept coming back to. It's easy to remember. It's short, 365driven.com. Easy to find, easy to remember. And then it was available, so I bought that .net and .com, and I can just use it across my branding. So that's important. But 365 Driven is a mantra. You and I we both hang out with the Frizella clan. It's like I am first form, like I am 365 driven. I build mantras because it's a community mindset, remember? It's got to be bigger than me. Tony Whatley is just the captain of the ship, but I'm not at the top of the mountain. I'm at the bottom of this upside down mountain holding up the community to facilitate their dreams. And that's what it always comes back to me at the end. It's like I'm not at the top. I'm not the ego guy that needs to be at the top of that pyramid.
Yeah.
So it's a mantra, it's a movement. I'm building this community, and man, it's just it's a kind of a play on the logo is like a gear. So the people that go look it up, it's a gear. It's a throwback to my car passions.
Yeah.
But also
I think it's clever. I like it.
Yeah. When I see gears, whenever you see a gear, anybody that's listening, when we see like a physical gear, that symbolizes work, man. That symbolizes like it's doing something. It's some kind of a action. It's a dynamic, it's turning something, it's creating some kind of result. So it's kind of like that's what I wanted. And we made this joke about the car guys, like 365 driven means daily driven. So we like to build these race cars with 1,000 horsepower, 1,500 horsepower, roll bars and just gutted interiors. Like, hey man, is that your daily driver? So it's like a joke. And so you'll have like the hashtag daily driven would be like, when it's like some race car with a parachute coming out the back. Yeah, that's my daily driver, take it to the grocery store. So it's kind of like this joke, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of a throwback to my car guys.
No, that's funny. We used to do that too. We almost we would put a sticker on our car to make sure people knew daily driven when we had like the roll bars,
daily driver.
Yeah, the daily driver, But so let's talk about hustling real quick, because I actually love this topic. It's a passion of mine, just like you. Like, you started hustling at a young age. For myself, I was the same way, dude. I used to, just to come up a quart, I would sell Bubblicious bubblegum, the individual ones. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Obviously, I lived in a different time. Pokemon
Blow
cards,
Pops, Jolly Ranchers.
Yeah.
We had these things called Garbage Pail Kid cards. Yeah, I'd go buy them at the corner store.
Yeah.
There's a guy, he knew that I was flipping it, and he would sell me the whole box at a discount. He was cool. The guy working at the Stop and Go, and he knew that I was going to go sell it, so I'd buy the whole box. He'd give me a little discount, then I would go double my money. I'd take it to school and put it in Ziploc bags. I was like the crack dealer for candy.
Yeah. And what do you think? Because with hustling, I have a passion for it. Like I said, I even, like, till this day, I still run an eBay store because I like to make money when I sleep. Right? Who doesn't? Right?
Yeah.
What's the biggest misconception, you think, when it comes to creating side hustle businesses? Between, like, maybe the feedback you gotten through your book, which we'll talk about soon, and maybe some clients that you've mentored or things like that. What's the biggest misconception that you feel's out there when it comes to
I could tell you when I started doing the research for the book, Side Hustle Millionaire is the book title. It's on Amazon, became #1 bestseller. In only 9 hours, that's a testament to the marketing process that I created for it. But I started doing a lot of research on the side hustle community, because that's why I'm the side hustle millionaire. I earned millions of dollars from a side hustle. I always had a full-time job.
Yeah.
And there's a good story with that title too. We can go into that if you want to later. But most people think when they do a side hustle, they go read these books and they're telling you, hey, Ejay, you can earn an extra $300 a month. Oh man, if you work really hard, you can earn an extra $1,000 per month. And I'm reading these books thinking I'm going to learn something from these books because they're already out there. They're bestsellers.
Yeah.
I'm just like, man, let me do some research to see. And I'm reading these books and I'm just shaking my damn head. I'm like, these people think way too small. And what they're doing is they're teaching other people to think too small, just like them. They've created some kind of authority by writing this book, but they haven't done shit. They haven't proved anything that's in the book. So you go over these books and it's telling people to go drive for Uber. It's telling you to go get a part-time job. It's telling you how to hand-build trinkets that consume a lot of your time when you get home from your normal job. It's just all these small-minded things to make
ceiling like hustles,
like,
right?
Dude, if you're reading a book that's telling you how to make $200 extra a month, you're thinking way too small. And if you're thinking if they're suggesting you with these ideas that are consuming a lot of your time, then again you're thinking way too small. You're in that employee mindset. So be careful who you get information from. Have they exhibited did they build enough side hustles to make a really good amount of money? Or are they just going, hey, you know what, I'm going to come up with a bunch of job ideas? And that was actually some of the feedback that I got on Amazon. One guy commented and he goes, man, I bought your book and it sucks because it didn't have any ideas in it about how to make $1 million. And I was like,
what'd you think about that?
I was like, I've only dumped out my entire mindset and the strategy that I've used to build a few 7-figure companies. And that's the response I have back is like, I did not build you a spoon feeding, like, here you go.
Yeah.
Open, here it comes. Like, it's like, I'm teaching you how to think, man.
Yeah.
It's like, that's the key, is teaching you how to think and how to execute and why it does these things work. And, you know, some people just don't get it, dude. They want to be spoon fed. They want to find the easy results. But you know what? Everything is easy, dude. Everything is easy, but the effort is hard. I mean, everything that you want to achieve in your life has been done by somebody else.
Yeah.
Everything.
Nothing's original,
and
right?
You can deconstruct every single success plan of everybody that you admire, and you'll be like, oh, this is what they did. Here's what they did. There's no luck factor. There's no, oh, he had to go find this person. And like, you can deconstruct everything down to where they started. Usually it's some kind of a adversity moment where they're sleeping in their car, right? We always seem that kind of thing, right? I've only slept in my car to get a hangover over before I could drive when I was a kid, but that's another story. But it's so many people out there that are just looking for the answers. But the problem is, it just comes back to the fundamentals, man. You just got to do the work, dude. And that's the hard part. Most people want the easy.
So the research you found, though, that was the inspiration behind the book, was definitely all these other books it was very capped off.
Yeah.
They weren't thinking big enough. And a lot of the content that's in that book is definitely the mindset behind that side hustle, right? man, dude, best-selling on Amazon too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave a link, below in the description so you guys could check that out. Thank you for giving me a copy, by the way.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. So talk about also, obviously you were in a leadership role, the side hustle millionaire, fantastic. When you started to get into the mentoring, the entrepreneurship, I understand also that you were, you're doing a lot of speaking with Toastmasters, right? Walk me through that. Is it kind of one of the things again where you just happen to emerge as that, where you got empowered to do it?
It all comes down to, we had a little conversation before we fired up the camera about people judging other people for doing things like videos and selfies. And, a lot of dudes, we're alpha dudes, 2 alpha guys sitting here, I can tell for sure. And if you're listening to this and you're an alpha dude, you've probably been around your friends, or maybe even it was you made fun of dudes doing selfies and videos. You're like,
I know I did.
Look at that jackass, like, acting like a teenage girl. We've all heard that. And you're hanging around with a bunch of other alpha dudes and they're like, yeah, man, that guy's being a bitch.
Yeah.
But then you look around at the people who are being critics and they're not doing any fucking thing extraordinary in their lives. And you realize that the people out there doing the things that you want to achieve in your life are doing exactly the things that those people are criticizing. So it doesn't take too long to understand that if that person out there that I want to have that same lifestyle is doing these 3 things, then I need to go do these 3 things regardless of what these critics, even who might be my friends or my family, are saying. And that's the uncomfortable part for most people, is to put themselves in that situation. But I said, you know what? I am very aware now. I mean, I had a near-death experience racing a car, crashed into a wall at 130 miles per hour. Wow. And in that moment, I thought I was going to die. So I very much value time nowadays. And while I knew that I was going to become more successful, what that did is create an urgency to really start executing and stop making a bunch of bullshit excuses to myself, because most of us don't value time. We kind of go through the motions. We know we're going to get there. We know we're going to get more success. We know we're going to get a pay raise or a promotion or start a company, but there's a lot of downtime in between that goal and where you're at today.
A little too comfortable, right?
Yeah. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to turn up the heat. So what can I do to expedite this thing? Because I'm going to repurpose my downtime and try to be more productive in all aspects of life, whether that's fitness or relationships or business and so I said, you know what? I think I can speak okay. Because I lied to myself. That's the thing, man. Ejay, dude, I lied to myself. I had leadership roles, leading teams of 75 people at the peak. I would do the project kickoff meetings and the slideshows and the safety meetings and go represent the departments at some of these different inter-office meetings. And I lied to myself because I thought that was public speaking. because I get in front of the crowd like I got this, but you know what? You are not a public speaker. And if you're listening to this and you're in a manager role, even if you might be a CEO of a company, dude, you are not a public speaker because you can stand in front of somebody. Yeah. You're not a public speaker because you do not have the skills yet to create an engagement. Engagement is the thing. You hear the vocal variety when I'm speaking. If you would have interviewed me 2 years ago, before I started Toastmasters and started doing public speaking events, I would have been a really boring person just talking like this with a monotone voice, asking, "Oh, thank you, Ejay. That's great." And
stop.
And, you would hear all these filler words. And like and then I did this, and and
it would have been an editing nightmare for me, man.
That's a great question. That's what you would have got 2 years ago. A lot of people out there are listening to this or lying to themselves. They are not public speakers that they think they are. Go join a Toastmasters. Go stand on the stage. See if you can get the people to sit on the edge of their seat with your engagement. It's a strategy. It's a skills, man. We learned about vocal variety, eye contact, presence, hand gestures, just all these different tactics. And it's just like anything you learn, when you gain those skills, now I can focus on the message. Because a lot of times we focus on the message, and when we're insecure and we don't have the other skills, we're thinking, man, am I standing right? Do I have my hands, both hands are in my pockets? Oh shit, that's not good. I'm sweating. I got the armpit sweats and body temperature's rising. Man, my voice just feels like it's scratchy. I got the cotton mouth, like all these physiological things attributed to fear of public speaking. Now we're all worried about all these other things going on, and you can't focus on the message, so your message is not engaging.
So there's a lot that goes to it, basically.
Dude, it's a lot of tactics to learn, and it's all based on repetitions, man. Once you gain the skills, You don't have to focus on that stuff anymore. It just comes to you. You can focus on the message, and that makes you a lot better speaker.
It's consistency, it sounds like.
It's all reps, just like the gym, dude. Get stronger with reps.
Man, I feel like the same way with podcasting.
Podcasting, reps. Episodes is reps, dude. You get better with every episode.
You know what? I'm so glad you brought this up, because there's one thing that I've been lying to myself, and that I thought that I was getting better. But then when I started transitioning and started doing my solo segment, I started to find myself re-recording myself. And you know what? To me, that's not being of service to myself, because I want to keep recording, even if I mess up, knowing that if this is a one-shot thing, that I am more comfortable and I can, actually deliver the messages I'm trying to do. And that's a prime example of lying to yourself.
Solo pods are the hardest.
Yeah.
Because we are already our worst critic.
I'm talking to a wall on these solo things compared to talking to you. You know what I mean?
You don't want to mispronounce. You don't want to use filler words. You don't want to pause too long because you forgot what you're going to say. You have all these things that you're worried about because you're so focused on the message, and you want to deliver the perfect message and get people and get them just engaged.
Yeah.
And sometimes it just doesn't have that energy. And you're like, damn it, delete, restart. It happens to everybody.
Yeah.
But that's that perfectionism creeping in. That's a weakness. A lot of people think, well, I'm a perfectionist, and they think that they wear that with pride. That's actually a weakness.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Well, that's I see that I find it, I admire you because I know that you're passion driven, right? So I'm gonna do something a little different on my podcast.
Oh man, oh man.
No pressure. No, but I'm gonna name a passion of yours that I'm pretty sure that I have. Actually, I think I wrote it down here. But anyway, I'm gonna name a passion, and I want you to, if just really short, some of the best lessons that you've learned, or maybe like some of the just some ideas or thoughts that just come up right away.
Okay.
Right. And there's some passions that you probably don't think that I'm going to name, but I'm going to name them anyway.
Go for it.
So why don't we start off with car fanatic, car enthusiast.
What do you want to know about that?
Actually, you know what? I actually want to know, is there some sort of relationship or maybe some symbolism in regards to, or, again, a relationship in regards to how you build your cars versus how you've managed these multi-million-dollar companies?
I would say that my cars, I love to build cars and I like to buy cars. So the whole built, not bought, whatever, I can do both. I enjoy new cars and I enjoy classic cars. I'm a General Motors classic muscle car. That's what I enjoyed growing up. And I have a couple Dodge Vipers, so I like new cars as well. I like American cars primarily. So there's a lot of people who are like, hey, Tony, why don't you buy a Ferrari or Lamborghini? It's like, because I like American cars. And I would like to have one of those, but it might be like the 20th car I buy instead of like the first car I buy. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I'd rather have a Ford GT just because it's still American. That'll be like the next exotic car. Then maybe I'll do a McLaren 720S. So nice. I do like the exotics, but I have a preference. Patriotic, man. But I buy cars that I like. I don't care about what other people like. Because everybody's like, hey, why don't you buy this? Like, because I don't want that. I buy cars for me. And there's a lot of people out there, we talked about people faking stuff and the whole leased Lambos and just weird stuff that going on social media. Like, I don't buy cars to impress other people. I buy cars that I like. Yeah. And I drive the shit out of them. I take them on the track.
Thank God, man.
Dude, I've got 2 Vipers I put over 20,000 miles on. They were new. So most people never put 5,000 miles on a car, especially something like that. My wife and I, we drive them all over the place. I drive them to the gym. It's like a daily driver, even though I got daily drivers. It's like, why would I drive the Jeep when I can go jump in the Viper? It's like, it's not raining. I'll just go take the nice car. Where most people are like, keep it under a cover. And,
your cars are not trophies.
Dude, you know what? It's just like me. I'm covered in scars and rock chips and shit happen. Cracked windshields happen. And I'm not saying to go abuse your cars. I take damn good care of my cars. They're way better and way nicer than anything that most people sell when they trade them back in. But I'm enjoying those. And I would say that for me, building cars is the perfectionism, especially the 69 that I built. I spent a lot of time trying to make things as perfect within my capability.
Yeah.
And it resulted in it getting on the cover of Super Chevy. So I built things at a very high level. I mean, it's a multiple six-figure build 69 Camaro. So if your listeners want to go check it out, Instagram 365 Driven, you'll see a bunch of photos. It's a bright orange Camaro. And I built that myself. I did everything but the body and paint. But I, basically just from a hollow shell to a running, driving car that I've driven across the country twice now. So it's a testament to the reliability, the engineering mindset, right? Everything's got to function and be reliable. I think that me building cars is an artistic outlet.
Yes, I was just going to say it's an art.
It's an art that I can do. And, you mentioned about the wheel business I have. I enjoy custom wheels. I've always had custom wheels even when I couldn't afford them on cars. It's just a way to personalize something that I think that's always a way to stand out, to make yourself look better, make your car look better, have a little more pride and ownership of what you have. I enjoy helping customers make their car stand out. So if you got people out there like, oh man, I got a Ferrari and the factory wheels are just fine. Well, what happens is they go to Cars and Coffee and then one of my customers pulls up and parks next to them in their Ferrari with the $9,000 set of wheels that are badass, and it makes that guy's car become invisible. And then he's wondering why, like, everybody's looking at the car right next to him, even though it could be identical, the same color.
It's like, damn, I need to get some wheels.
Exactly, dude. Wheels and stance define the car. And most people think paint matters. That's not true, dude. Think about all those patina rods out there, the rust cars. But they've got the right stance and they've got a killer set of wheels. And everybody's like, badass, man. Let's get into magazines without any paint. Even we've seen cars like in the hot rod scene with like these really shitty factory colors. But they put a badass set of wheels on them and they lower them. Dude, they're in the magazines.
Fucking sick.
So wheels and stance define the car.
See, I could see the relationship, the pride and the art that you take with building cars, and also the companies you built. You know what I mean? How about entrepreneurship? First thoughts or biggest lessons you've learned?
Entrepreneurship for me, I think anybody can become an entrepreneur, just like I think anybody can become a leader. It's a decision. I don't believe people are born that way. I think people just have to have desire for more. If you're not driven, though, you're not going to ever be an entrepreneur. But you're also never going to be a leader if you're not driven. You got to have something that's driving you. You have to have some kind of a purpose, or that's a short-term purpose or the meaning of life type purpose. Our purpose has changed through our lifetime anyways. But I think that entrepreneurship to me is that, dude, I have always had authority issues. I even though I've became very good at navigating the corporate ladder and just kind of learning the human behaviors and the psychology behind things and how to behave and the right things to say and sometimes even schmoozing the right people.
I mean, playing your role.
Nobody's going to admit like, oh man, brown nosing and all that. You know what? No, people are like, oh, I don't do that. Like bullshit. Anybody that's reached some level of success where you're making multiple six figures, especially, you've had to do some kind of a networking to become likable, to become candidates for those levels of jobs. That's just the way it is. And anyone that says otherwise, you're lying. Let's be honest, you're just lying. So you can be very good at that, but it's always felt like it throttled me back. So if you're listening to this is a good indicator why you should be an entrepreneur. If you're working that job, I want you to take a look at your current boss. And I want you to look at their boss, maybe 2 levels up, and realize that maybe that's you in 5 years. In the next position, maybe that's you in 20 years, because that's kind of how it starts to work out when you get in your 30s and 40s. So do those people, either of them, do they have the lifestyle that you really want? And if they don't have the lifestyle that you want, then why the fuck are you working so hard to get that lifestyle? Why are you waiting 5 years to get a lifestyle that you don't want? Why are you waiting 20 years to get another lifestyle that you definitely don't want, when you can go create a business and get that in 2 years?
I wish I could go back in the future and listen to this 5 years ago for me.
Dude, it's so true, man. And I was aware of this because I started my first company that started doing really well at age 28. So I was only out of school for 2 years. And I started a company, and within a year, my side hustle, which was ls1tech.com, an automotive community, giant 160,000 people when I sold it. It's 300,000 people now.
Wow.
That was creating more income in 1 hour per day that it was taking me to operate it than my engineering salary. So here I had this side hustle that was making over $100,000 a year into it. And I was making like $85,000 as a salary at that time. And eventually I was making $400,000 a year for working 1 hour a day. So you don't have to go trade a bunch of hours to make big money. That's the kind of the mindset I like to teach people. Figure out ways to scale your time based on other people's time, or get the audience, get the eyeballs, build the community. Then you're going to get advertising revenue.
Community builder right here, guys.
You can have spin-offs. There's been at least 10 other multi-millionaire businesses that have started from my business. That's, we have Ed Milet as our mentor. And one of the things he teaches that you have to have a vision so big that your dream is big enough to contain everyone that supports your dream. Mm-hmm. And when I heard that, dude, I was like, dude, that is like talking my language. Like it's giving me chills right now. See?
Yeah.
Because I think like that. My dream needs to be big enough to contain everybody that's dreamed, that's supporting my dream. Mm-hmm. And that's what I've done is I've built other people to become millionaires because they started shops advertising from my website. There's 5 people that were my moderators on that website that are now millionaires.
Wow. Because
they said, you know what? Hey, we've got this opportunity. We're staff of this website is very busy. We had 100,000 people per day visiting that website. I'm going to start a little shop out of my garage or sell some parts online. Mm-hmm. Dude, one of those is an 8-figure company nowadays.
Dang.
And they started as 2 kids out of college, 2 friends that were moderators on my site. Mm-hmm. Proud of them. So I've built millionaires. Mm-hmm. I've built multi-millionaires mm-hmm. with my dream, and it built me to become a multi-millionaire. See what I mean? Yeah. So it's always about what you can do to help other people that always comes back. I mean, we know this. It's
being of impact.
It's being of impact, man. And too many people think about themselves. Mm-hmm. Entrepreneurs especially, there's a lot of people getting into it thinking about themselves.
Mm-hmm. Ego-driven.
Dude, it's going to limit them, man. And we talked about this. We're collabing. We're brothers anyways, but we're going to collab. We're going to be on top of that mountain together. We're going to have one hell of a fucking party.
Yeah.
Dude, we're going to have a party. And
can't wait.
That's the key is like having that growth mindset, understanding that competition is bullshit.
Yes.
Competitiveness is great, mm-hmm. but thinking that everybody's your fierce competitor is bullshit. It's better to collab. Mm-hmm. Collaboration at all walks of life, even at the corporate level. That's why there's all these mergers and acquisitions. That's a collab.
Yeah.
Think about it. 2 giants, titans of companies joined together. Boom, market share, collab their way to the top. Mm-hmm. Think about that, guys. Don't think about everybody's competition, even if they're the same business model as you. Dude, there's so much potential out there for success that you just got to be able to step the fuck out of your own way, put your own ego aside, be competitive within your own business, but mm-hmm. start to scale things and look for collabs, how it gets you guys to the top. There are businesses that you can align with that complement what you're doing. Mm-hmm. Dude, help each other, man. And don't be the asshole that's like, well, my business is bigger than yours, so you got to work twice as hard, like, and bring me
how
more
you helping me?
Yeah. Because there's people out there, especially in the podcast world,
yes,
TV world. Oh man, you're not big enough to be on my show, and do 3 shout outs for every 1 shout out I do because I'm King Dick.
I haven't gotten that one, but wow,
dude, that tells you right there that scarcity mindset is going to limit them because they're going to be the small fish at some point, and they're going to get abused, and they're going to get blown past guys like you and I who are adding value. And mm-hmm. I don't give a shit, man. It's like we're all humans, man. Yeah. We're all at different chapters in our life, but don't compare yourself to other people thinking you're better or worse than them.
Yeah.
We're all even, dude.
Mm-hmm.
If you're bringing value, if you're offering to help, like, thanks, man. I appreciate that. Mm-hmm.
I think also, if anybody, since we're talking about podcasting, if you're out there and someone overlooks you, they don't want to be on your podcast. They think your podcast too small. I got people, and I know people ask you this, Tony, all the time. Mm-hmm. How many downloads you got? All this stuff. Yeah. Don't let it discourage you, because I will admit it used to discourage the crap out of me. Yeah. But now, since I shifted my focus and my energy towards how I could provide value and keep moving forward and getting maybe guests that people don't have, mm-hmm. And providing more value, now I'm where I'm at today because of that. I didn't focus on that competitive spirit. In fact, I think, Tony, it's safe to say, like, looking at both of us, since we both have podcasts, we only drive each other in a very positive manner. We don't look at it as competition. In fact, if it's anything, it's inspiration.
Yeah.
When I see you, when I have people like the legend Marcus that was here, mm-hmm. who does a successful podcast, and everybody else, it's a positive driver, I guess you could say. You know what I mean?
I think I liken the podcast community kind of like the craft beer community, where they collab and they build collab beers together, and they go drink at each other's breweries, and they recommend their other brands to their friends. It's just like this happy community.
Yeah.
Well, shit, it's it's craft beer, man. It makes you happy, right? They're selling happiness in a can or a bottle. So podcasts are also happy. And I find that generally the podcast community is very supportive of each other. Mm-hmm. And I haven't really run into any negative egos in the podcast world, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. That's good. That's good. So podcasting actually was one of the passions I was going to mention. So I'm glad we got into that. Fitness. I understand that you are definitely into fitness. You be lifting some heavy stuff, man. I'm like, man, dude, that Japanese strength, man.
Oh man, let me get the listeners on board with this. So I was an athlete in high school. Played football, Texas football. That's a small town. Friday Night Lights was basically my life when you watch that movie. Mm-hmm. And through college, I would do weight training. I wasn't playing any physical sports at that time, just weight training and staying in shape. And then corporate life started to happen. I had a kid when I was 29. And basically, career started to take a lot more of my time. Oil and gas. I was working offshore a lot of times. I was eating unhealthy. And by the time I was 35, I actually sold my first company at age 34. So that also contributed to complacency as well. I just kind of started getting out of the fitness thing and just kind of getting lazy. Mm-hmm. And my wife, she's younger than me, and she's always like, hey, let's go to the gym. And you know what? I had so many excuses between age 35 to 40. That football injury, my knee hurts, or I'd always find some kind of an ache or pain. And sometimes I did have aches and pains, and I thought, my shoulder would bother me, lower back. It's because I'd let myself go. I never busted 200 pounds. Normally I'm like 180, 185 is where I should be. And that's just even with fitness or fat. Mm-hmm. Like it could be fat or it can be muscle. But I'm always like I think the heaviest I got was 195. And so here I am, you're wearing pants that are basically 2 inches bigger than your norm, and you're having to go buy new belts and stuff. And your belly starts to stick out past your chest. And I turned 40 and I looked in the mirror. I was like, man, this is not who I am. It's like, I've always been fit, and here I am weak as fuck, belly sticking out, got bitch titties starting to show up.
We know how fitness translates into the mind,
dude. And I was like, you know what, clothes aren't fitting right, and I'm trying to wear clothes that hide your fat, and the tire that we always get it around our waist. And I said, you know what, this is bullshit. It's like I need to just quit being a bitch and go fix this. And it sucks, dude. When you go back to the gym, like after taking like basically 5 years off.
Oh my gosh, it's like climbing Mount Everest, man.
Dude, I remember like getting on the bench press and like, I'm gonna do a warm up with 135. So I put some 45 plates on there. Fucking did like 2 and I about killed myself. I was like, you don't realize how fucking weak you get even if you took a year off. Like, good Lord, like I used to rep 225 and I can't even do 135 twice. I can't even bench my own fucking weight. Like, that's fucking weak. Let's be honest. And so it was a struggle, man. In that first 3 months, I just sucked it up and I went, basically 3-4 days a week at that time. I go 6 days a week now, but I knew the results are going to get it back. And you start to see the gains coming back. You start to see your waist size decrease. Your clothes are fitting better. But what most people don't realize is the level of confidence that you gain.
Absolutely.
And if you're listening to this and you've never been fit, you may be going, hey, fuck you, Tony. I'm a pretty confident guy. You know what? Call that your baseline. Call that your fucking baseline. If you think you're confident now, go get fit, get in shape, make your clothes start fitting right. Dude, you're going to look back at your fat self and go, fuck that guy. He wasn't confident. He was lying to himself.
Yes.
Because I will guarantee you will gain a higher level of confidence about yourself. You'll enter that fucking room dressed nice. And here's the thing is when you're in 20s and you're in shape, even if you're in your 30s and you're in shape as a dude, it's pretty common to see, man. Pretty common to see. 40-year-old something, 50-year-old something, 60-year-old something. Like you walk in the room and you're fit, more fit than the 20-year-olds. Like that's not common.
Yeah.
You want to make heads turn, go fucking be fit in your 40s. It's just not common. Mm-hmm. So here's the thing is I started working out again, pushing it really hard, and I could do the 1,000 plus combined with the Olympic lift. So bench press, deadlift, and squat, I can do combined over 1,000 now. And that's the most I've ever done in my life. I'm 46.
Nice.
But all the aches and pains and the bullshits that I had, like the knees and the shoulder, the lower back, that's all gone, dude. Mm-hmm. My core strength has gotten better. Mm-hmm. Fitness, eating healthier, everything's gotten better. So it's weird that I feel like I've gotten younger because all those aches and pains that I lived with for basically like 8 years are gone. They're gone.
Yeah. And it's almost like also like the excuses you had to not work out, it's almost like that translates to you probably make excuses with other things too.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
People can judge your discipline in first few seconds they meet you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true. So Tony, we're going to be running out of time soon. Actually, I forgot to put my timer on, to be honest, but who cares? But, just real quick, and we discussed this. We were actually just talking about how like
we're going 24 hours, guys.
to not ask just the generic questions, but this one question I do ask most of my podcasts, just because everyone is very different, very unique.
Okay.
And with you're again, I admire you because of everything that you do. You do so much, right? What's your legacy? What's the one thing you want out of people to know you about?
It took me a really long time to think about that, and I think a good exercise for listeners to figure out what their legacy really is to go write their obituary. And as morbid as that sounds, dealing with your death, sit down. It's going to be emotional. If you don't fucking cry while you're writing it, that means you're not trying that hard, because you're writing how people are going to read about your life. Mm-hmm. And if you're not putting enough on there to be remembered by, then, dude, you're not doing it right. Like, really dig deep.
Yeah.
Like, just sit down for an hour, start typing out.
Get vulnerable, right?
Get vulnerable with yourself. Find that thing that's making you, why the fuck am I here? And write down your obituary like Tony Whatley was. And it took me a little while to think about that. And, being that near-death experience really made me think about it. But I'm on a legacy play, guys. I will impact, and this is how small I used to think when I wrote that book. I said, I want to impact thousands of people. Now I've already impacted thousands of people. I will impact millions of people.
I love it. And
create a generational legacy improvement within their lives. So the decisions that we make, the decisions that you make, especially if you got children, the decision you make today can change the entire generational legacy of not only your children, your family, their children, 10 years down, 10 generations down based on one decision. So if you can create somebody's impact and I'm going to do this by impacting people by teaching them self-confidence and the business tactics that I have. I realize that I can't save everybody in this world, but I can save business owners and encourage people to step the fuck out and become entrepreneurs, start betting on themselves, take more risks, quit waiting for that perfect time that never comes, because the excuses that we make today are always replaced by different excuses later. So that's how I'm going to impact this world, by teaching people confidence, mindset, and business skills. That's what I love to do, man. I could talk about business and cars all day long. Fitness, I'm interested in it, but I can't talk about fitness with a high level of energy probably for more than like 30 minutes. And I'm like, that's it. So
you know where your expertise is.
Understand where your passions are.
Love it.
How can you impact the world? What can you do to put a fucking dent in this world with your passions? Start thinking bigger than yourself. Don't let yourself be the limit. And here's the number one excuse I hear a lot of times with people, hey, what's your purpose? And probably a lot of your listeners, I think the majority use it. Well, I just want to take care of my family and my kids. Okay, that's honorable. I get that. That's a weak fucking purpose, because that is your duty. Don't make your duty your purpose. If you're a parent, that's your fucking duty, man.
That's automatic.
Yeah, it's like quit blaming your kids for your limitations in life.
That's human
There's
DNA.
So many people out there blaming their wife or their husband and their kids, like, oh, I would do this, but I got kids. How many times have you heard that in your life, especially corporate world? Like, I would go start that business, but I got kids. So you're going to tell me you're blaming your fucking kids for your lack of success, which can create their generational legacy improvement?
Hear it all the time, Tony. You have no idea, man.
Quit using your kids as an excuse. Quit thinking that's an honorable thing. That's your fucking duty. Like, do your job. Now go fucking do something else. Because you realize that all the billionaires out there, all the multi-millionaires out there, they got kids too, man. They just don't have the same excuses as you.
Dude, I love it, man. I appreciate you coming on the Parables. Tony Whatley. Hey, guys, real quick, where can they find... I know you mentioned it earlier, but mention again, where can they find you on social media if they want to reach out to you?
So my website is 365driven.com, and you can find links to I'm very active on Instagram and Facebook, same brand name, 365driven. And my best-selling book is Side Hustle Millionaire, and it's on Amazon. And Look for my podcast, man. 365 Driven. Imagine that. I'm very good at branding across the spectrum. So
keep keeping it easy.
I'm beating it into your head. 365 Driven.
I hope you guys really pay attention in regards to that. He gave some excellent strategies also on, building, branding yourself, building the communities. Man, hope you guys really took it in. So anyway, last thing, if you don't know already, Tony, I only have Legends sign the infamous canvas, man.
Oh, man.
So please do me the honor if you could sign the canvas of the parables, and I appreciate you guys. If you guys are watching or listening, as always, please do me a favor. Tag me and my guest Tony over here. Let us know what you guys think. Also, I don't do ads. I used to do sponsorships, but I scratched all that because I'm all about the impact. If you guys know of anyone where this episode or any other of my episodes can impact or influence or inspire somebody, please share it with them. That's all I ask. Parables Podcast with Tony. We are out of here. Arte in the building. Let's go.
Arte, man.
Let's go. We out.